to cover Further with Ford, Ford Motor Company's trend conference. And we want to explore this question of why. Why is such a simple question, but it often leads to the deepest insights and the boldest innovations. So today, we have an opportunity, an extraordinary opportunity, to hear from the senior leader of Ford Motor Company and talk about why Ford, why now. I have the extreme honor to introduce Bill Ford, the executive chairman of Ford Motor Company, and Andy Serwer, the editor-in-chief for Yahoo Finance. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this conversation with the Executive Chairman of Ford, Bill Ford. I also want to welcome everyone who's watching this live stream on Yahoo Finance. Bill, it's great to see you.
Thanks, Andy. It's good to be here.
So let's just jump right in and talk a little bit about what you do in your role as Executive Chairman of Ford.
Well, a little bit of everything. One of the biggest roles is to look forward, and it always has been. I think part of that is the family ownership of the company. I think it gives us permission to look a little bit further forward than many companies do, and it's something I spend a lot of time on. Obviously, I do a lot externally on behalf of the company, with governments around the world. I spend a lot of time with Mark on our strategy, on our people, and importantly on our culture, because I think in many ways that I'm the continuity here through multiple CEOs, and the culture to me is the most important thing we have.
You talked to me yesterday a little bit about the difficult job that Alan Mullally had when he came here, but you said that Mark has a difficult job as well. How are those jobs different?
Well, yeah, it's almost hard to compare them. Alan got here at a time of extreme crisis. I brought him in to fix the company and fix the operations, and he did just that. He did a wonderful job, and it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun together, which is hard to believe given the time we were in. But Alan's mandate was very clear. We've got a business that's collapsing. The industry has collapsed. And how do we save the company and then move it forward? And that's what happened during that time frame, and it happened really well. And as you know, we didn't go bankrupt, we didn't take the bailout, we paid back our debts. But it was quite clear what had to be done. Now, Mark takes over, and one of the things that he and I spent a lot of time talking about prior to him coming into the job is that his was going to be much more of a strategic focused tenure, because everything about our business is changing.
Well, it's been a tough time for the auto industry right now in a different way, because it seems that Wall Street doesn't have a whole lot of faith right now in the business for all automakers around the globe. Your stock price has lagged the S&P, and you have a low PE. Why is that, and what can Ford do to?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. I think first is if people are looking at it just traditionally as an auto company, they're saying, well, you're coming off record sales in the U.S. And things are recovering in Europe. How much better are things going to get? I think there's that thesis out there. And then there's the other thesis when people are looking at all the disruptions, saying it's not clear to us who's going to win, and also what any of you are going to look like in 5 years. And therefore, until we have some clarity around that, we're just going to take a step back.
So what are the exciting things going on at Ford, just in terms of old-fashioned vehicles that you drive yourself? We'll get to the other stuff in a minute, but just cars and trucks.
First of all, I'm driving now the Focus RS, which to me is about as much fun as it's like driving a video game. You just point it and go, and of course you've got drift mode and all those things that I probably shouldn't be doing, but can't resist. And we won Le Mans this year in our new GT, and that was amazing. Actually, one of the greatest feelings that I've had since I've been at Ford was standing up at the podium with the trophy, looking out over all the people and this is 50 years to the year that we had come to Le Mans and won with the original GT40. So that was pretty neat. And so the traditional car and truck business has a lot of sex appeal going into it. And then, of course, we have this whole new area, this mobility area, which is something that I've been thinking about for over 10 years, and it's happening now.
Let's talk a lot about that because it's top of mind for, I think, everybody. But what is the human impact of mobility mean? I know this is something you're keen on, Bill.
Yeah, well, this is something that I personally spend a lot of time on because I think about what's the mission of a company. And I believe that if I go all the way back to my great-grandfather, he believed that the only purpose of a company was that of service to society. And that, of course, flew right in the face of what capitalism was at the time, which you had the robber barons, you had tremendous fortunes being made, tremendous disparities in wealth being created, maybe not so unlike today, but he believed that, and it was, and a lot of his compatriots, therefore, were kind of freaked out by that, and they didn't think that was right. That's always resonated with me since I was a child growing up with the company, and so I believe that firmly today. Of course, it has to be reinterpreted for the period you're in. So then you say, well, what does that have to do with mobility? Well, when I say we, I mean everybody who's been talking about mobility, has primarily focused on urban mobility and how to move people around cities more easily. And that's, top of mind, it's real, it's happening, and it's something that has to happen. So that's great. But then there's this whole other part of mobility. If you take what I said just a minute ago in terms of why we should exist as a company, and that is, there's this underserved element to mobility that I hope we can solve as well. In many, and there I'll divide it into two pieces. One is unemployment. There's been a lot of research recently that says the reason we have so much structural unemployment is that in many cases people simply just can't get to their jobs or to where the work is. And if we, through mobility solutions, can help enable that to happen for people to get to where the work is, then that to me is something that's incredibly worthwhile. The other is there are almost 800 million people in the world without access to health care. What if we could enable mobility in rural areas, and it's not just rural areas in the United States, but particularly in the developing world. If we could, through technology, and we've got experiments going now in Gambia, we've got one in South Africa, where we are using our vehicles to and we have one in India, transmit data to healthcare, either hospitals or doctors and nurses back in cities about rural villagers' health, and also then use our vehicles to get to remote areas and to map those areas as they're going, and to help NGOs figure out the best route to deliver healthcare or medicine or food to these various communities. So there's that whole part of mobility, which I think is incredibly interesting and something that I'm super excited to help solve. The notion of getting people to work and the notion of delivering healthcare and food to underserved around the world. And to me, that is every bit as important an element of mobility as is solving global gridlock, which is where I started talking about this in 2011 at a TED Talk about global gridlock. But in my mind, it's much broader.
I mean, that notion that you have of delivering foods and medicines to parts of the world that are underserved, I mean, that sounds rather far afield, quite frankly, from a traditional car company.
Well, everything we're doing and thinking about is probably far afield from a traditional car company. We're talking about disrupting ourselves. The way the vehicle itself is propelled is being disrupted. The way people access vehicles, the ownership model, all that is being disrupted. So, but rather than look at it as something that is scary, I think it's a terrific opportunity.
I was going to say, so it's not just a responsibility, it is a business opportunity? I mean,
yeah, well, it's not clear where some of these business opportunities really are. I think that's where we are at this stage of our evolution, is that we are going to try a lot of different things. And obviously at the end of the day, we have to build business models around them that work. But I'm very confident that will happen.